John,
Chuck.
what's up, buddy?
Not much. How are you, my friend?
It's been quite a week for us, my friend. Before we play the live show, we just wanted to pop on here and thank the live Facebook audience that's going to gather here and watch this tonight, and thank the just about 50 people in our live show in our crowd this past Monday. We recorded our 100th podcast episode, John.
Yeah, very warming and gratifying.
It was an amazing event. If you weren't there, you definitely missed a unique experience, but we are going to try to bring you the best of it tonight with the fully mixed in audio and video of our episode from this past Monday. Some obvious thank yous. Thank you to all of the people who came to our live show on Monday. Thanks to our two guests for our panel town hall, kind of interactive town hall towards the back half of the show, Senator Lester Jackson and Alderwoman at large Kesha Gibson-Carter. And obviously, thank you to Bree, Danger, and everybody at the Front Porch Improv Theater at 210 West Victory Drive in Starland for being such amazing hosts.
Agreed. I was really heartened to have Senator Jackson and Post One, Kesha Gibson-Carter as our guests. I thought the discussion was interesting, and to have support from two other city aldermen, Julius Hall from the ATR network, and I'm so glad that we have a great foundational relationship. And we talked about it in the live 100th show. All the touch points that are cropping up in this community,
yes.
Really since 2019 is kind of the kickoff year for that. Enhanced by the COVID and closure and quarantine period. But
shouts out to the Savannian, particularly to my partner in crime, Rachel Flora, for definitely helping us man the door and the parking and stuff. But thanks for everything you do for this community, all these other partners. But I know we delayed the show a little bit tonight because I know Stacey Abrams was in town for something that ended about 30 minutes ago. So we wanted to give everybody a chance to kind of get home and get settled so they could, if they didn't get a chance to watch us live, watch this premiere here on our Facebook and YouTube and Twitter channels. So again, just the biggest of thank yous. Before we get started, anything else, John?
Well, I just want to comment, Chuck, how different and fun it was to do a show live before a live audience.
It's definitely different.
Yeah, because we did 99 shows with me here on Barnard and you down at Orleans Square, all of a quarter mile, but it might as well be 100 miles or 1,000 miles. When you come together in a live format, it really has a different energy, which I enjoy. And I hope that as the 2023 campaign season goes along, we'll be able to pull off some other live events at the
I sure hope so, John. I mean, I sure hope so. I hope that we'll have some kind of roving town halls or debates and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, as the banner is saying, please like and share. This is a very special episode to me. I think it was great, kind of from start to finish. So, again, John, thank you for being here with me doing this. Obviously,
yeah.
I really appreciate your kind words in the live show
that
we did. Hey, couldn't do it without either of us. So, I don't think either of us are crazy enough to attempt this on our own. So I'm always glad to have you here. So with that, I'm going to back us out and say enjoy the show, and we'll see you in the comments section.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
I'm just waiting on Chuck. We've never done this before. Maybe it shows. There you are.
I'm right here.
Okay.
I'm here.
All right. Well, the official spokesperson.
We're gonna get started with a short intro video, but I just want to say thank you guys for showing up. This is our 100th podcast recording. If you could do me a favor, we'll have some stragglers coming in. So if you see people coming in behind you, they're gonna be trying to fill in the back rows. So I just want to again say thank you guys, and we'll get started.
Chicago City of Savannah to have a honest tourism management plan. Let SCAD start paying its fair share. And the hospitality industry needs to increase its wages. The impacts of new growth should not cost residents. All local elected officials on council and commission should have term limits. We're working hard to accomplish these policies. We need your help. Please contribute whatever you can, $5, $10, or $20, by going to bettersavannah.org. Donate. Thank you.
I want to say congratulations to Better Savannah. On this Thursday, they will be showing their 100th episode. So congratulations to Better Savannah. And we wish you more. John McMasters and Chuck Fagan are doing a great job bringing policy to the forefront of all these discussions. Congratulations on your 100th show.
Hey, John, happy birthday. I know I look pretty ragged. I just got out of the ocean and was kite surfing in honor of your birthday. So happy birthday to me too. Anyway, I want to thank you for all your help in schooling me on politics, and the show that you did with the SDVR and no code enforcement. I think that's really coming to light, and I just want to say happy birthday and thank you and Chuck for helping bring that issue to light as it was brought to light last night in City Council. And with that being said, happy birthday to you.
Hey, John and Chuck. Sorry I couldn't be there on your big event, your 100th episode in Better Savannah, but I'm off on my honeymoon, so you guys understand why you take a back seat to that. But I just wanted to say congratulations on all your episodes and let you know how much I appreciate you guys never being afraid to shy away from the truth, man. This city is big on not wanting to hear it, but you guys tell them no matter what they want to hear, and you tell them right. Keep shooting them straight, man. Thank you for all your support over the time. Keep doing what you're doing. Look forward to many more episodes from you guys. Enjoy.
Orlando Scott here. Hey, John McMaster, Better Savannah, congratulations on your 100th episode. Wow. I'm standing here right now at Savannah Airport, and I'm thinking about all the growth that we've had in recent years and the compassion that you have around policies that makes growth make sense. So I appreciate that. We appreciate you. And congratulations again. May you have 1,000 more episodes to come. Thank you. God bless you.
Hey everybody, I'd just like to congratulate John and Chuck and Better Savannah for recording their 100th episode. I really do appreciate your involvement in the community and your spirit towards getting everyone else involved in our community. Thank you for all you do. Congratulations again. Keep up the good work.
John McMasters, you magnificent bastard. Congratulations on your 100th podcast. Congratulations for all you do for Savannah, to make it a better Savannah, to make it a more transparent Savannah, and a cooler Savannah. and a little bit crankier Savannah sometimes, but that's okay. We love you, brother. Congratulations. Many more.
The following show and broadcast is a production of Better Savannah, an independent expenditure committee dedicated to better policy outcomes at the state and local level. The views, opinions, and statements made by the hosts and/or their guests do not necessarily reflect the views of Better Savannah.
Wow. Oh, it's bright. It's bright. It's bright.
Thank you.
Oh, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. John, it's great to see you.
Chuck, good to see you face to face instead of.
Normally, we are
10
through the
blocks
power
apart.
of the internet 10 blocks away, but it is great to be here in person. We were talking, of course, about the genesis of how we got here, knowing that it's a big milestone. We've been planning this live show out for at least a couple, 2 months, 6-8 weeks here. So, just reflecting back on the milestone of, going from the old version of Facebook of you blogging and tagging 99, which was the limit back then. You could tag your friends in a post. You want to talk a little bit about, how it feels to be here now compared to where this started?
Well, sure, but first let's recognize our elected officials.
Of course, let's get all of the administrative duties out of the way. I want to first thank, of course, everybody who's here live.
Yeah.
Everybody who'll listen to this when we broadcast it out on Thursday, the final post version. We've got a lot of great guests in here. If you are an elected official, I just want to give you a round of applause. I know I've seen Port Wentworth, Chatham County School Board, the delegation, several members of City Council. So we just give all of the elected officials who are here to participate a round of applause. I'd appreciate it. And just some overall thank yous of how we got here before we go into our stories.
Sure.
I want to first thank former State Senator Regina Thomas, who is not here tonight, but certainly without her presence in the 2019 elections, which we were very supportive and close with her during. I'm not sure this project would have gotten quite off the ground as big as it would have. Who else do we want to thank, John?
We have to thank Julius Hall and the ATR networks.
Of course.
And I think we're going to talk just quickly about how a lot of things really happened in 2019. But we want to thank the train wrecks for
Our theme song.
giving us the music bed. Thank
Great
you. Yeah.
Song of Sally. Go see them. They're always playing on Tybee or somewhere in town.
Just very committed local talent that wanted to support us. And when we asked if we could use, one of their tunes, they said absolutely. Maria Burns for the voiceover on what is probably our lead spot, talking about higher wages and term limits and whatnot.
And of course, we want to thank our hosts here tonight, the Front Porch Improv Theater, for such a wonderful venue.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
letting us host this here on a Monday evening.
Yeah, they didn't charge us the normal event
community
venue.
rate. We
Right,
always
yeah.
appreciate that. And that funny story, we actually met one of the founders of this theater, Bree, across the street.
Yeah.
Not
long ago.
Not too long ago, but it feels like a long time ago when we were protesting the SCAD move-in. She was one of the first people to pop her head across the street and come join us.
Hold a sign and walk with us. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people are intimidated to protest, especially when the city brings in the Mountie, the horseback police, to make sure there's no crazy riot controls.
Yeah. The city tried to tell us that we couldn't be on the sidewalks. It was like, where's that coming from? And we're gonna be here. And it's interesting because the parents who were moving their kids in to the dorms some of them were like, what's going on? What's this all about? And when we quickly explained our position on SCAD gentrifying the community and not paying any property taxes, they were sympathetic. So it was a good example of if people just know what's going on, you have a much better chance of winning them over and making change.
Absolutely. So speaking of change, that's really what this project has been all about. Seeking reformation through policy changes. Specifically,
well, it's those elected people that are in the audience and beyond that have the power to implement the change that we're advocating, and it's a collaborative effort. And I had no idea, 3 years ago that we started out with 2 followers, and now we have 30, almost 4,000.
Yeah.
So it's not immense, but it's a solid core. By the way, 60% of our followers are women and 40% are male. It's a great demo. I learned a long time ago in advertising that women make 85% of all decisions. So I'm really glad that we have that demo.
100%. And if you look at like the voting electorate from 2019 or the most recent primaries, even, it really mirrors what the voting electorate in our area looks like. We started this project in 2019, and I always 2019 rather, I always kind of marvel at, we kind of put everything together in September of 2019 and put ads supporting candidates opposing the Eddie DeLoach Council. And of course, if you're new in the town, this guy right here, John, is a 25, 30-year vet of, what I would call institutional politics here, really fighting the good fights going all the way back to the 90s. So, people had already kind of known, you were a known quantity for your work over the last 25 years. And when you and I kind of put this together, we really found a niche in especially, these social media algorithms that all of us live by on a daily basis, it seems, to break through a lot of the white noise of politics and policy leading up to that 2019.
Yeah. It's interesting how Chuck and I met, because we didn't know each other, but going to candidate forums and neighborhood meetings, Chuck was seeing my, before Better Savannah, I would just post on my Facebook page and tag 99 people. And that was the genesis of my need to vent and talk policy. And Chuck said, "Hey man, I read your latest post. It was really good." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." And so we kept intersecting at these events. He got appointed to the bond authority. And let me give Chuck some props here. I've been around a lot of political people and agencies, and Chuck has an innate, like a intrinsic gift of understanding the strategy and the ins and the outs of politics.
All right, that's our show. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
All I wanted to get right there.
Yeah. So yeah, we decided that we liked each other, and we were on the same page policy wise. And Chuck said, maybe we should be a independent expenditure committee, which is the equivalent of a PAC. although it's at a state level. And I started thinking about it, and my career was in advertising and marketing, which is trying to create an oil change or a mattress or a funeral service to a market segment. So
your foot. Keep tapping your foot.
Keep tapping.
You
Okay.
keep doing it. It's all right. I just want to say that at the same time, there was just this institutional failure of media, especially like after 2016. Our local paper, we're not even going to mention the full name right now, but they were one of 3 newspapers in the country that endorsed Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And it just went downhill from there.
Yeah.
And in 2019, when we started this, they endorsed every single loser.
Yeah.
In the 2019 elections.
And they immediately stopped doing endorsements after that.
Well, yes. So they got bought by Gannett right after that. And then the policy became, we don't do any endorsements anymore. And so there's just this vacuum of no truthful narrative really being put out about the local politics and the local policy. And we're not the only ones that have filled parts of that space. We mentioned already ATR, which helps fill a lot of that space. There are independent journalism outfits like The Current and the Savannah,
absolutely,
that we like to follow. That all popped up in the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, and I want to give credit to Tom Kohler, who was early on, 2014-15, with Emergent Savannah, which was designed to just create conversations amongst desperate groups, sometimes not, and that led to the Elizabeth Becker coming to Savannah and on and on. So there's just a lot happening after 2019 that portends really well for an alternative narrative to be advanced, when before all we got was so homogenized and curated to special interests perspectives that I think we filled a void. Also, this is a little on Tawdry, but or Tawdry. We figured if the Russians could screw up our elections in 2016 with virtually no cost, very
$1
low
million
cost,
nationwide. Tip the election. So
yeah,
that's what they want to split.
we said maybe we can do that locally, and listen, Facebook is an amazing vehicle because we can reach people with our message, be it impact fees, term limits, pilot fees, what have you, for like 3 or 4 cents a person.
Less sometimes.
I mean that's just from the industry perspective, that's a phenomenal reach rate. It just can't be beat. So let's hope Facebook keeps its rates low. So
I view 2019 in this context of kind of like walking into the casino for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And hitting the triple bonus or there's this moment on
got
election
6 out
night.
of 7 people.
Yeah,
elected.
6 out of 7 that we supported win. And I remember this moment. Me, you, and Maria were driving around that night, and we had left one party.
Dietrich's party. I mean, everybody was losing.
At the beginning of the night,
like,
everybody was kind of like losing or close. We didn't know how it was going to shake out.
Let's go home and watch The Deer Hunter.
By the time we got to Alderwoman Kesha Gibson-Carter's election night victory party, was kind of when it all kind of clicked that we had kind of swept
Everybody won.
This entire incumbent council. Eddie Deloach, Bill Durrance, John Hall, Brian Foster, all of them gone in one night, and thinking like, oh wow, we've got this amazing opportunity. And right after that, in January, when this council's term started, was around the time we started doing podcast episodes full time, right? And so I want to shout out and say thank you to CJ Smith and RG Bryant. I know they're in the audience. Frequently have been guest hosts. CJ early on, thank you guys. CJ early on in 2020, and of course this is when COVID-19 happens.
Yeah, we got a big boost because everybody was locked up at home watching social media.
But do you remember the moment where, because I had been pushing you for a while in the 2019 run up, like I was like, we gotta just start this as a podcast. We've gotta do content, and it's hard. I wanted to say this at the top, doing anybody who creates content, whether you're writing or making a audio only podcast, video podcast, whatever, it's incredibly hard, right? It's incredibly hard to be a content creator, to consistently produce content. So anybody who is in that world, I salute you. I wish you the best. I try to subscribe, like, and share. The three big rules of podcasting or content creation. But if you remember, John, there was this moment about a month or so into the COVID pandemic, maybe around March, going into the primaries for 2020, where everything moved online, right? And if you'll remember, whether it was going to the Hungry Club forum in person, becoming an online Zoom, or, your local, party affiliation meetings being on Zoom, everything went to Zoom. And in the initial bout of that, the initial unveiling of these Zoom productions, I think we kind of felt like, oh man, the quality is really, really missing out on some of these forums and debates and interviews with candidates.
Right.
So we started doing candidate interviews, and actually the first 20 or 25 episodes of the podcast is really all candidate interviews for the 2020 cycle. And, we went forward with that and had some wins and had some losses, trying to back, different candidates that year. But I think what we learned the most was that people are hungry for content like this. They're hungry to see people who might not be trying to be as politically correct as a TV journalist or, softball questions. We're asking really hard, tough questions. So much so that, people like Chester Ellis wouldn't even come back, on second invitation after the first round.
Yeah, he won't talk to us anymore.
I wonder why.
So
I know that Al Scott won't talk to us either, because we helped end that career too.
Yeah. Well, what else do we? This is probably terribly boring history for everybody, but
well, before we get to our guests, I think in our conversations lately with friends of the show, community members, leaders, everyone is complaining about this so-called source of contention on city council. They want to blame personalities.
We were talking about this the other day in preparation for this.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about like the history of contention on council.
Well, when I first came to Savannah in 1993, Floyd Adams got elected, and it was like the first black mayor, and there was a lot of tension about it, and then Otis got elected, and Otis's council had tension, contention, and then Edna's council. Mary Osborne and Tom Bordeaux. Do you not remember the
headbutt,
the struggles, and then the Tony Thomas, when Van was in the minority with Estella and Tony, they were acting up or speaking out, and then the Eddie Deloach administration, it had its moments. So the nature of councils, I can just tell you from 30 years of being here, is that there's always contention on council, and I submit that that's a good thing, because in a perfect world, issues and policy that matter are being discussed heartily, and if you call that contention or conflict, I'm okay with it. Most of the stuff that's happening on this council, it's our opinion, clearly, that this is a manufactured source of contention with the early adoption of a rules change at the micro level of council, where historically any council member, or when I was on the county commission, if you wanted something on the agenda policy wise to discuss, you just requested it, and it was 99 out of 100 times agreed to. And if that one time it wasn't, you could do it in the next meeting. Maybe it was too busy in that meeting. So this sort of access is inherent in the body politic and the deliberations of legislating and governing. So the rules change of council basically froze out and blocked 4 members of council. And that is good reason to be contentious and to have your voice heard, that you can't advocate and do the job that you envisioned doing because of a rule change. And the interesting part of it is that at this point that this rule change happened, which I believe was like April of 2020, brand new council in place, the mayor had already flipped Dietrich, Linda, Curtis, and Nick. He had a majority,
A 5-member majority, a slim majority,
but a majority.
Yes.
So he didn't need to block and freeze out discussion. He could have got his won the day or got his votes through with that simple majority all day. So that was an overreach, and I don't know why he insisted on doing it, but he didn't need to do it, is my point. And we would have had a lot of debate and discussion on policy
and votes,
and Van would have won probably all those votes, and that would have been a healthy, normal council practice. But instead, we got people that couldn't get anything on the agenda to save their life, whether they went through the city manager or through the mayor. Having to have yourself and 4 other people to sign on to something, that's a majority. So
and if you're here at this show, then you probably followed national politics relatively closely the last 10 years. Is everybody here familiar with Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell? Everybody's familiar with this guy, right? So I've called, yes, the Turtle Club, president of the Turtle Club. I've called this council term and the leadership of Mayor Van Johnson the Mitch McConnellization of the Savannah City Council, right? And what I mean by that is that because he controls a majority of voting members and controls the rules, it means that bills that your members may not want to vote on or even debate don't get brought up for that debate and that vote. And it also means that, ideas that might be really good for this community are not getting progress like they should during this council term of 4 years, simply because ultimately of a political choice. A lot of times you'll hear this in DC called like a messaging bill. We're debating and discussing impact fees in the coming weeks at city council, finally, in our 3rd year of this term. We could have really brought that consultant in 2 years ago, the first year, and had that debate then. But we didn't because of that majority, who controls the floor. So again, it's just about, procedure is often the biggest silent P in power, and these procedural rules, to me, there's no greater divergent point in the 3-year history of this council than that, vote, which was a 5-4 vote. Even Mayor Pro Tem Shabazz, who votes with the majority,
now she does, yeah.
Very much now, so consistently, at the time thought it was not a great idea, and so I think that the next year, as we go forward into this city council cycle after the midterms, this is going to be the main point, I think, of contention is, how did we get here to this source? How did we get here to this contention? What's the real reason? And I want to make sure that that is a part of that narrative.
Yeah, there's no need to suppress or strangle the democratic process, because that's the job we elected them to do. And to have them frozen out, locked out, is wrong. It was unnecessary. And I hope it's a significant campaign issue next year. Lastly on this, the media, unfortunately, glums on to the controversy and makes that the story. You don't hear the story about them being locked out of the democratic process. And that's that's the fault of local TV stations, institutional media. So to whatever extent we can, we try to get people to understand, hey, there's a reason for the contention, and it can be fixed, and we can see how the sausage is made.
And there's
Be
no
fine
doubt
with
we've
that.
made some progress on the core policy issues that are platformed with Better Savannah. I mean, like I said, certainly impact fees are getting close.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
SCAD is freaking out over our call for pilot fees. If you look at the broader community, I would say 60 or 65% of people now believe that enough is enough. SCAD is too much. And really, if you take the fact that they've got almost 13,000 students, if they were a city of their own, they'd be like the third largest city
municipality in the county. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, by round of applause, is everybody's ready for SCAD to pay their fair share?
Yeah.
Huge round of applause. Along the way, we've picked up some other parts of the coalition, you know, things that we really support that were not necessarily our ideas.
Yeah, no,
but
organically they
others.
come to us. The Weeping
Absolutely.
Time.
The Weeping Time Coalition. The Weeping Time is the site of the largest slave sale in the history of these United States. It's on West Augusta, in West Savannah. We have done nothing to date to protect even the core piece of land involved with the site, much less the piece that we sold off from the Housing Authority to the Salvation Army for them to build a transitional center right next to this site. There is ongoing litigation. We're not going to speak on behalf of that, obviously, but that's something that came about during our time doing this podcast in this organization.
And then Calhoun Square.
Most recently, I mean, supporting the name change on Calhoun Square. Hopefully everybody here. Thank you. Hopefully everybody here knows Sister Pat Gunn or has heard of her work. That coalition to rename Calhoun Square is really on like the 10 or 15 yard line. It was supposed to come up on this week's council agenda. Now I'm hearing it's going to be 2 weeks from now. And, you know, she told us on the show 2 weeks ago. We had her on 2 weeks ago that the city manager had committed to putting the name change on the agenda. But most recently, we did see an email from the mayor, you know, indicating that this needs to be a slow, incremental, multi-phase process where we actually, please let's hear me out, okay? We dename the square is what's going to happen first. We're going to have a nameless square for God knows how long. And then at some later date,
we'll entertain
the new names. Yeah. Right. So there's progress there, but not much.
I mean, it's micromanaging something that ought to be pretty simple.
Well, if you're familiar with the history of Bobby Hill in this town, Bobby Hill was a great leader who spearheaded the movement to get a street named after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And at the time, 37th Street was the proposed street because historically 37th Street has been a very vibrant part of our Black community in this town. And when the city finally caved on naming it, rather than name 37th Street MLK, they named West Broad MLK, what's now MLK, you know, simply so he wouldn't get the credit. Because I think there's just they don't want to see a precedent set where these citizens get something involved together, they put it together crazy. and they succeed. Right. They don't want to see that as a precedence. And you've got experience directly with this. I know that we got some of the reunion folks from back in the day, but like the recycling issue in the mid 2000s is a prime example.
Yeah. I was involved with a group of environmentalists that in 2007 looked to the Georgia Constitution for a solution, which is Article 9, Section 2, Paragraph 3, which is petition, the power of petition to amend or change any ordinance. There's a bunch that you can't change the salaries of elected officials or their district boundaries, but otherwise, the sanitation ordinance was wide open, and we wrote an amendment for it to include curbside recycling, and we set about getting requisite number of signatures that the Constitution called for. And then if we got them, there would be an election and the people would decide whether or not they wanted to have this occur. Interestingly, Otis Johnson told us.
What did Mayor Johnson tell you guys when you got together to do that?
He said, "You guys are crazy. That's a white bougie service. It's not going to be well received."
And I just want to point out, and I love Dr. Otis Johnson to death. He's
Absolutely.
He's got a great story. But if you ask him now, he will say that was his greatest accomplishment.
One of his biggest
as mayor
that he's proud of. Yeah,
because a cantankerous group of citizens forced him to. So
yeah, and well, look, let me finish this, then we'll go on to our guest.
Our next segment.
It's really interesting how this played out because we said, well, we think you're wrong, and we think we can get the 11,000 signatures, and we were, we had signature boards all over town, and we're ready to turn it into the probate judge. And Stacy Cronquist, who is kind of the spokesperson for our group, got a call from Michael Brown. He said, I want to meet with you about the recycling thing. She said, okay, great. So she goes and meets with him, and he says, if you can give us until January 1st of 2008, we think we can do this. You don't need to turn your petitions in and trigger an election. And we thought, well, God, that's a win. Cool. What really happened, because you hear things after the fact, is the Chamber of Commerce called the city manager up and said, for goodness sake, give them recycling. The last thing we want is to have everybody and their mother dropping petitions, and once the genie's out of the bottle, we can't get it back in. So give them the policy that they're asking for.
Well, we've had, probably 70 some odd guests, many elected officials, and two of our favorite are here to join us tonight. So I want to welcome them up, and I want everybody to give a warm, better Savannah welcome to Alderwoman at Large, Kesha Gibson-Carter, and State Senator Lester Jackson. Come on up, y'all.
Wow, this panel just got a lot more distinguished.
All right, some of our favorites. I before we get into some of the local stuff, I'll just start with we're 5 weeks outside of really 4.5 weeks out from an election, something like that, the midterms. I think after the last week, we probably can all agree that Herschel Walker doesn't stand a chance anymore. But to our panelists, and I'll start with you, State Senator Lester Jackson. How do you think the Georgia midterms are going to shake out? Specifically, is Stacey Abrams gonna win this time?
What was that great sports commentator that said, "Not so fast, not so fast"? For Senator Warnock to win, we all must participate and go out and vote. I mean, there's going to be a block of voters that people are going to vote for Herschel Walker no matter what. But the win for Senator Warnock comes when we all participate and vote. Good people have to vote, and that will ensure we have the right man in Congress. But your question was about Stacey Abrams. I'm excited about Lita Abrams. I'm excited about her in this election. But I would tell you, I will be honest with you, 4 years ago, I felt a lot more excitement. 4 years ago, I felt a lot of fever, of motivating of people of different cultures, of different backgrounds, wanting to go out and participate in this election, wanting to vote. I don't feel that same sense of urgency right now, but we still have time. I think Lita Abrams have an outstanding chance of winning. I think she'll be a great governor. I think she's the right person for this country and for this state. And we can name a number of issues. We can talk about Medicaid reform, getting Medicaid money down. We could talk about the abortion issue. We could talk about putting money back in public education. We could talk about a number of things, but Stacey Abrams is right for Georgia right now.
All right. Not going to get any disagreement from this panel on that statement. Alderwoman Kesha Gibson-Carter, your historic election came in the wake of the year after Stacey Abrams' first run for governor, which certainly helped to activate, some of the political people in this town and give us a higher turnout in 2019. How do you see this statewide primary or midterm rather finishing up? Do you think Leader Abrams is going to pull out the win?
Well, I want to first say to you and John, thank you for having me. And hello, Savannah. And hello, better Savannah. And I want to say hello to my strength that's in the room, Alderwoman Miller Blakely and Bryant Lanier. Listen, it's an exciting time in our country. It's an exciting time in our state. And it's going to be an exciting time in our city. The question you asked will no longer have to be asked once we as elected servants, elected officials, start to serve the way we campaign. And it's going to be a challenge as a result of the fact that we have so many people winning elections, but falling short on what they campaigned on and what they promised. I have high hopes for our state as we enter into our gubernatorial race as a woman, as an African American. It would be delightful to see Stacey Abrams as the first African American governor in the United States, right? Female, that is. And so we continuously are encouraging those of us who are in office and those of us who are seeking office to stick to what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it. And, we had the first Jewish businessman elected to the Senate, and we had an African-American preacher here in Georgia elected to the Senate. And so I think the climate is right. I am not as inclined to align myself with partisan politics for many reasons. But when I see individuals coming into our community and not addressing the most pressing issues that face Savannah, and I'm known for saying things that people do not want to say and cannot say, but when you come to my city and if you're running for a state office or running for a national election, you have to address the fact that African American men are dying on the streets of Savannah at alarming numbers. You cannot come to my city and not address the weeping time, the greatest atrocity that occurred in this city. You cannot come to Savannah and not address the issues related to the misappropriation of federal subsidies that have been released to our community. So, this is what I'm excited about. I'm excited that the electorate is engaged. They are intelligent, they are smart, they are plugged in, and they are voting their conscience. And until we start to serve the way we campaign, we do not have to worry about Black Voters Matter. We don't have to worry about telling people to get out the vote. They are going to come to vote because they're going to honor your service. But we're giving them very little to honor.
Absolutely. John, everyone saw in our intro video, and kind of a main theme of our project and organization is just, after 30 years, we've had all of this growth. So why don't you ask our panel guests here, kind of the core question of this project.
Okay, let me share something that I heard at coffee this morning with Tom Kohler.
Sure.
We all know Tom. And by the way, I've known this woman for 20 some odd years from First Presbyterian Church where I was congregant.
I was 8.
Yeah. But Interfaith Hospitality Network, how many years?
Now Family Promise. I served there for 10 years, so it's been over 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing that Kesha wouldn't follow up on or get done, and that was a wonderful way to get to know you because I just saw you as ever present and constantly in motion. And then, of course, Rape Crisis Center, which was how many years?
5 years.
Yeah. So service is your calling card, and you've been great at it. Okay, so this morning I'm having coffee at Sentient Being with Tom Kohler. We're just talking in general. And he says, the theme for next year's city elections really ought to be this. Is Savannah a community or a commodity? Kesha, Lester, who wants to take that? Any comments?
I think Savannah is both. I think Savannah is a rich community with a proud history. but we still have a ways to go. But Savannah is for sale, though. Huh?
Yeah.
Savannah is for sale. We are a tourism destiny, and tourism rely on minimum wage people to go to work, and to feed these tourism, we need cheap labor. So Savannah, for a long time, for the past 20 plus years, have been looking for cheap labor to bring these tourists in. But
It's the truth.
it's true. But so we still have a ways to go. We need to start talking. No longer we need to talk about minimum wage jobs. We need to talk about livable wage jobs. We need to be more like the city of Columbia, South Carolina. When big business wants to come in, they have to have local participation. The city workers and the new workers that come in, the workers have to reflect the city employees' wage, which is usually $12.50, $13 an hour, versus minimum wage jobs. If we're going to be an effective community, we need to start talking about employment, and better opportunities for its citizens. Oftentimes, what I see happening is that we import a lot of our labor. We import a lot, especially when it comes to building hotels. And I don't want to get, talk bad about any, hotels, but when it comes about building hotels, you see all these people coming in.
Texas tags.
I'm not against Texas, all right? But all these and you look at the tags, they're from out of state. But if we train our own people to do cement finishing, to lay concrete, to lay brick, to paint, we can create our own
Prosperity.
and community.
Yeah, sure.
So what I'm an advocate of, training our own workforce as we bring this tourism, not only to build hotels, but to build our schools and to enrich our culture.
Alderwoman, thank you. When you ran, you ran against an incumbent who was very much voting with an institutional majority. Eddie DeLoach's council, along with his current mayor, Van Johnson, put on $250 million of bond debt in a 4-year period to prop up downtown, the arena areas, all in a 4-year period. Still a record that I don't hope to beat anytime soon. And the opponent you beat was also very intricately involved in the contracting and how people get paid off of these government projects. What is it that you see, that drove you to run and get involved, this business as usual, trying to stop that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was clear to me once I started to make the connection between my 2-decade plus years of service on the front lines of the worst hurt that the city of Savannah citizens experience, from seniors who were nutrition insecure to youth who were vulnerable and members of gangs, victims of rape and child molestation, victims of domestic violence, to homeless families with children. And working on the front lines of those missions, seeing how our local governments responded or did not respond became so apparent to me. And as I started to chart my course for the political arena, I was able to connect the dots and see that the resources were plentiful. They just needed somebody with heart, spirit, and compassion to be sitting at that table to direct those resources to the appropriate places. And so when we talk about what we are lacking in our community by way of it being a commodity and not a community, the city of Savannah is a community rich in culture. Every last neighborhood in their own right have rich culture, from Cloverdale and Carver Village to Avondale and Edgemere, Sackville, from Leedsgate to Tatumville. We are a community that is rich in culture in so many ways, but the commodity that is being built is not the commodity for the citizens of Savannah. In short order, people who were born here, who were raised here, who went to school, graduated school here, got married here, raised their children here. Those are the individuals who will no longer be able to live here in the city of Savannah. And that's disappointing.
All right, so I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to kind of stand up, and I'll take questions from the crowd and try to direct them to the best of these three panelists here. But I wanted to ask, Senator, you've been in the legislature a long time in our delegation, and you've served with maybe 5 or 6 different mayors.
Mm-hmm.
We were having this conversation before you guys came on about, the source of, so-called contention on council. What is it, in your opinion, that's, been most unique or most lacking, during, this last few years, most challenging about working with this mayor and this council? Have you had much of a chance?
Well, what happens is, and I've worked with 5, maybe 6 different mayors, beginning with Floyd Adams. And I'm gonna tell you, there's always been contention in city council. If you wanted to, I often said that when city council members come up to visit me at the state capitol, and I often said, if you want me to agree with you, you're gonna have to come in at different times. There's always been contention. All right.
Do you have the same snacks for everybody?
But lately though, but there's always been disagreements. But what I see with this city council, it's been more personal. It's not issue driven. It's more personal driven, and that's what I hate about this. There was a time people could go in and they could discuss issues and fight over issues and come up with compromises. It seems now, in this time, is more like politics in Washington, D.C. Nobody wants to give in. Nobody wants to work with one another. And it's just it makes it so hard to work with the city council when nobody wants to agree and nobody wants to compromise. Everybody wants to stand on their side. Now, and I have friends, and I consider everybody on city council my friends, but it's very difficult to befriend one and the other one gets upset because you had lunch with the with the councilman from post 1 versus the councilman from post 2, and I'm not like that. But we need to learn as a community to work together, and the city council needs, if we're going to prosper, we're going to have to start talking to each other and coming up with compromises to move the city forward.
Well, what a great segue from the senator. Anybody in the crowd wants to stand up and ask a question, I'll look out for you and try to direct it. In the back, right there.
Thank you, Chuck.
How can you see that?
Sean. What's up, bro?
I can't either.
How can you see that?
I can see him. I got him.
Trying to survive, basically.
Oh, you can cut it back off. I'm
This
just.
is for both a senator and for the Alderwoman at large. As we all know, we had somewhat of a miracle come through Georgia when it came to Hurricane Ian. The most pressing question on my mind this evening is exactly what are we going to do to ensure that if threatened, if and when threatened by an environmental disaster.
Well, the mayor's social media presence won't save us. You sure about that?
What can we do? What can the city do? And what can the state do in order to mitigate the damages and to ensure that as many people who wants to leave can leave, and those who wants to stay have something in the city to stay in, those citizens return.
Perfect. Just to kind of summarize the question, wants to know about preparedness for an actual environmental catastrophe. We've had 3 or 4 different Category 5s brushed by us in the last few years. We see the incredible damage in Florida when you do not prepare. From the city perspective, Alderwoman at large, what would you say the city needs to do better to prepare for one of those catastrophes?
Well, I don't know that we necessarily need to do anything better. I think what we are doing is appropriate and good. What we will need to do is recognize when we look at natural disasters and the threat of natural disasters for our community, we have to recognize where we live. We are a coastal community. Savannah is very uniquely situated. And so while we have been blessed, you say that in one breath, but in the next breath, somebody else has suffered a great deal. But the three factors that come to mind are those pieces related to preparation, coordination, and making sure that we are communicating with the right individuals who are the professionals. Preparation starts with educating our community, not only during hurricane season, but educating the citizens of Savannah and helping them understand the real danger of where it is that they live as a coastal community. So when it comes to evacuation, we have to help citizens know that that's serious, that's a serious matter, and it's nothing to be taken lightly. And so when we say go, we have to be prepared to go. That preparation comes in demonstrating what that looks like, what resources are our local government offering to communities who may not be able to prepare. How are we continuing to maintain those collaborative relationships with partners like Chatham Area Transit and the school district? And then the coordination of those efforts. How are we working in tandem with our Chatham County government via their SEMA services? So we have the right infrastructure. We just have to be certain that we are maintaining those relations so that when that time comes, we can continue to just work together.
Senator, I'll follow up on it. Oftentimes, kind of local government is the immediate response, but the state government is much more responsible afterwards. And you've worked with colleagues of both sides of the aisle after previous storms, like the farmers in South Georgia several years ago. What should the state be focused on? Should it be coordinating more of the local immediate response or providing resources after the fact?
Well, we need to do all of that. But the first thing is like Alderwoman Gibson-Carter said, that we need to be prepared. We've been working with GEMA, and they constantly do trials and preparation all the time. After a disaster happens in Georgia or any other state, they go in and see what went right and what went wrong. We've had a number of changes in the past few years when it comes to national disasters. We've learned how to, if you remember 20 years ago, and now when you look at 16, we can have all 4 lanes all heading north the same time. The first time we had a storm 20 something years ago, Floyd.
Yeah.
It was bumper to bumper because we didn't know that we could use the other lane, and it was too late. Now we can use all 4 lanes, now all 6 lanes. We have learned how to evacuate our hospitals, how to evacuate our nursing homes, how to evacuate our prisons and jails safely, how to get people who don't have transportation to meet at the Civic Center so that we can get buses. And we've contacted, working with the city of Augusta, the city of Macon, and the city of Atlanta to transport those who don't have transportation. We have worked and worked and worked to get to come up with a plan how to get people out of here. But the other part is, once something happens, will we have the federal money and the state money to rebuild and rebuild fast? And working with insurance companies and our money, we always have a pot of money for Georgia to go back and help communities so that people can get loans to rebuild, can get grants to rebuild. We can bring in the National Guard to help out. So we are prepared for it.
It's not SBAC. Don't have those grants. All right,
but we're prepared for that to happen.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
I would like to know, in regards to Whitney Time Office, I know it's like on the table, it's not, might be discussed right now, but I take very much pride in just knowing that land is there, knowing that is where my ancestors, some of my ancestors, my grandparents were born, my great-grandparents were born, my dad was raised here. And for it to be taken, it seemed to be so light that it doesn't mean much. And I don't want it to be where it's talked about on a trolley ride. This is where the Weaver Time property used to be. I would like something erected there. I like a statue just like all the other parks and everything. It's something that you can visually see and say, this is the people talk. And I don't mean a grocery store or a Salvation Army where people go in where you cannot discern or look at it and verbally and intensely say, oh, that's it right there. I want it to be seen, known. I want it to be for the whole community to understand and not be forgotten. So what will they do? When are they going to take up the case? What are they going to do? I've written letters about it, sending emails about it.
I think, none of us up here speak for the coalition itself or certainly for the lawsuit litigation. So outside of that, I'll say, I think all of us want to see the type of resources put into preserving something like Wormslow Plantation being put in to preserve the weeping time and make it accessible to as many as possible. I kind of wish Pastor Small was here because he would speak to it much more eloquently than I could. But before I pose it to all three of you, I'll just say that, as somebody of Jewish ethnic descent, not religious, but Jewish ethnic descent, there is an importance to preserving as much as possible and putting the resources into it, not from the same perspective of Savannah's for sale for tourism, but from the perspective of we have to learn from our past. We have to educate as many people about it. So I'll start with you, Senator. I know that Representative Carl Gilliard did a Gullah Geechee corridor bill, which might end up being something that could be a vehicle for this in the future. Any thoughts on what we can do in the immediacy to preserve the Weeping Time land?
Well, even before that, I would like to go back to Butler Island and make Butler Island a state park. If you remember, those slaves that came here were brought from Butler Island. And Butler Island is in disarray right now. And I would like to see our state take control of Butler Island and make it a state park so that people can really understand our history. We got to understand from whence we came. Had the opportunity to take my son, who's in the audience, Jonathan, to Butler Island. So that we can see the essence of what happened at the Weeping Times. So, because he asked the question, where were they before the Weeping Times? So we had to go back to Butler Island. And I think we need to do a state park in Butler Island, but also I think that a park in Savannah at the site of the Weeping Time should be a state park. Well, it can't be a state park because it's not state land.
Well, if they buy it,
Right. Well, I would like the city to donate it,
Yeah.
or some entity to donate it, so that we can make a state park, so we can visit and people can come and not only talk about the history, but remember their history. We have statues and monuments about all of these battles that were fought. There's no battle more precious than the battle when people gave up their families and separate themselves from each other.
Well, I'm happy to be part of the Weeping Time Coalition, and the Weeping Time is sacred ground,
100%.
and this it's in the city. The city is not treating it that way, which I mean, it's African American majority on city council.
Say it.
And
You can say it.
I didn't hear you, John.
there's African American majority on city council, and they have relegated this
Super
to
majority.
to the almost forgotten level of priority. I had my own personal challenge and disappointment in this because, as a member of the coalition, I said, let me contact Historic Savannah Foundation and see if they will at least sign on to supporting the preservation of the remaining property. And I did that, and ultimately I was told no. they would not sign on to it because it was too political.
The premier organization. Yeah, exactly. Premier organization dedicated to historic
So I mean,
restorations won't preserve this.
that's sort of frustration is just too common here, and that's a clear cut slam dunk issue of importance of respect and longevity and tribute, and we can't even get that right. So
Alderwoman.
Well, Dr. Teray does a piece on when our physical history is erased, what does that mean to us as a people, particularly African-American people who have suffered so many atrocities and great losses as a result of slavery. I think about my university, Fort Valley State. The University of Georgia, Senator Jackson decided not to renovate buildings, but instead tear them down. And so when I visit Fort Valley State, I go and I see these big structures, but no longer do I see the dormitories that I ran in and out of, or the buildings where I rubbed my head against the walls. And it takes something away from you. And so it's by design. When you see that this not only majority African-American council, but super majority African-American council, 7 out of 9 of us are African-American. And when you see that council is more intent on protecting Calhoun Square than we are the Weeping Time, Savannah, we have a problem. When you see the Bethel AME Church at Gwinnett and East Broad Street just in a half day be demolished, a church that's over 18 years old, and the excuse you gave was that it's across the street from the protected area. When you see in our communities, neighbors are in West Chatham, developers are taking over every single day. Teams of people are working to annex property in unincorporated Chatham County into Savannah and creating these developments that encroach upon people's life and their property. And then we have a citizen right here in this room tonight with us who's being abused by the lack of the city caring for their property. And so we have to look at these pieces and recognize it for what it is. It's by design. It's sheer greed and lack of regard for history, for culture, and for people in their neighborhoods.
We've got just a few more minutes. I want to take this one.
I have a question. Alderwoman Gibson-Carter, you brought up a really great point. We know that there are many challenges and battles that Savannah State is facing. But in my opinion, I think it's a concerted effort to kill the university. But with you leaving office, Senator Jackson, how can we keep the Savannah State's doors open without folding into Georgia Southern? And Alderwoman Gibson-Carter, especially with you sitting on council, I would beg to say that the majority of your council went to HBCUs and graduated. How can you and your council mates work with the state level elected officials to ensure that the rich history of Savannah State is preserved in its purity?
But we're going to go back to the bill you had at the table. Is that what we're going to go back to that over there? We'll start with Senator Jackson.
Well, I was sponsored a number of legislations to bring awareness to the destruction of historical Black colleges and universities in Georgia. A number of bills, and one is really prominent, and that I'm not going to discuss now. But what we have to do is come up with new programs that's going to attract more people to come to historically Black colleges and universities. And not only, and I'm going to say one, Savannah State needs a viable education program back, like it had 30 years ago. We need to promote more teachers to go out into our classrooms. And I think Savannah State is a perfect institution to do that. I think Savannah State University needs a law school.
Yes.
We need a law school south of Macon.
Okay.
And I'm giving a little history. Georgia is unique. Georgia is the only state that does not offer a terminal degree in any of its black schools. A terminal degree means a law school, pharmacy school, dental school, or medical school. Any other state you go to, they have a terminal degree. You go to Florida, they have a FAMU, they have a law school, they have a pharmacy school. You go to North Carolina, they have a engineering school. And also you can go talk about Georgia's the only state that a black institution does not carry the name of their state. Did you know that? Look at South Carolina State. What do you have? South Carolina State University. You go to Florida, you have Florida A&M. You have Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Texas Southern. But in Georgia, I'm not going to say it's racist, but but sometimes if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, yeah. But back to your question is, we need to have programs that young people are not only interested in, that they can have a job right away, and it's changing. It's changing. We need to offer more online classes. We need to offer night classes. We need to offer programs where people can understand coding and get a degree in coding and go right to work. We need to be more innovative, have programs that offer 2-year programs so that you can go to Savannah State, get a job in coding, making $90,000, and then go back to night school to get your BS degree. There's a lot of things we can do, but we need to think outside the box.
Alderwoman, thinking locally, recently, we had homecoming and, we were going to have a parade and we didn't have a parade, or we had the parade on campus. So just kind of localizing the same question on our community support for this historically black college, Savannah State University.
Right. Well, oftentimes you have leaders in our community who hide behind the fact that they do not have the authority or they don't have the purview to make a decision in various regards. But for me, as a sitting alderwoman of the city of Savannah, there would be nothing that I would not do within my power and authority to help encourage strongly that we had a Savannah State University parade. That's the first thing, right? And then secondly, it's the erasing of culture, the erasing of opportunities. We had St. Patrick's Day and didn't have MLK Day. And so it's a continuation, it's a theme. You guys, you get the pattern now? You see where we're going with this? And so at some point, we just have to accept it for what it is, Chuck. It's by design, it's deliberate, and it's political maneuvering at its best. But when I think about opportunities that we can engage in as leaders of the city of Savannah, when it comes to not just Savannah State University, but all of our local colleges, Georgia Southern University, Armstrong campus, as well as the Savannah College of Art and Design, we have to start creating a way in which we invite people to this imaginary table that we now have and say, how is it that you think you can help us help our city? There are town and gown initiatives, Dr. Grimm, whereby everything from creating internships from students to having them directly be recruited from the universities into our career system within our local government. We are not deliberately doing that. Maybe the mayor will do something about it now that I said it out loud. We are down 100 police officers, and we have been down over 100 police officers for a long time. Well, Georgia Southern, Savannah State University, they both have criminal justice programs. Why are we not creating a pipeway where we can recruit students who actually come from these communities and look like the people who they police? We had over 8 involved officer shootings within a 12-month period in Savannah. Why is that? We all in this room can answer that question, but we have to be more deliberate. We have to be more focused and intentional about what it is that we say we're going to do. So
I think Councilman Stevens is taking all of them to Fort Wentworth. That's
They're hiring out there.
over there. I'm kidding.
He's offering more money too.
I'm sure they are over there. Councilman Stevens, welcome. I appreciate you coming. What's your question?
ask before this past week, I've been asking myself this one question. Why is the race between Warnock and Walker so close? I mean, when
I
you
told
look
you.
at the two candidates, you have one who sits in a chair that Eddie King said it, Martin said it, Martin Brothers said it. And then, on the other hand, you have the hot mess that you can talk about for Georgia 40 years ago. Why is it so close? It makes no sense to me.
I'll let John answer. You want to
Thanks.
try to answer this? I mean, first off, I'll say we don't advocate federal elections. So, we don't, as an organization, have a dog in that fight, so to speak. I will say personally, I don't think it's as close as the polling says. I think that race will finish without a runoff, with a win for the incumbent Senator Warnock. I do think that below there on the ballot, I do think things are much closer, or where candidates on the Democratic side are in fact losing potentially. I'll just say that before I let John answer, I think that Walker doesn't have the specific negatives Trump did. I think he's got different negatives that aren't as biting for moderate Republicans that will ditch him, which is why he's still polling pretty well in numbers. But John, you want to take a crack at that?
I think Herschel Walker is going to go down in flames, and it's not as close as it is projected or presented. The only plausible reason is, of course, his football history at UGA, and I just can't believe that that's going to carry him within a point or two of a highly qualified, charismatic, proven, incumbent senator. I just think the polls are wrong. I think Herschel Walker is an embarrassment, and the results will substantiate that.
Absolutely. We've got time just a few minutes.
I think a lot of elections are issue based and not people based.
Yeah.
There are just sometimes there are issues that people go in and vote for an issue. The gun rights is an issue based, and they don't look at personalities. Abortion is an issue, and people don't look at personalities. Either you're for or against. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Ellison.
Warnock.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
And from your lips to God's ears. My question is for Ms. Kesha. You were referring to the development and the different areas. Now, we live on the south side where they want to build 400 new homes on Wild Heron with two very narrow streets, just a narrow road, hundreds of wild boars. They want to build 400, and it's close to a marsh. Nobody's doing anything about how that's going to affect the water level and us getting flooded now. And nobody is, they're trying to do a traffic study because that's also by school. And the traffic now is crazy. But like you said, they're building like crazy. You go on 95 and 16, you'd think you were in Atlanta now.
Right.
You go to many places on Veterans, those huge warehouses they're building. They aren't hiring the people here. They're bringing them in, like you said. And so now they want to build more places for them to live. So it is taking away the charm of Savannah. That's one thing. We are really losing that. And I want to know how you feel about them doing that. It's going to have to be approved by the council whether or not they go ahead and allow them to build those homes. Even if it was a smaller amount, they're not doing their homework, I don't think. The other one that was on Okeechee and 17 and Charlotte there was just voted down by the county commissioners to build there next to a school. But my question to you is, they had the MPC do their homework. They said, no, we don't think it's a good idea, but the board said, yeah, we're gonna let it go through. We're gonna approve it. Thankfully, they voted it down. So what are we gonna start about this building, and can you, entertain moving that down?
Right. So I will tell you, I am continuously concerned about the adverse impact that many of our residents are facing in communities that developers deem desirable. I am continuously concerned about the adverse implications of our residents in communities where the city essentially have neglected in doing is neglectful in doing due diligence where these residents are concerned. I want to say to you, I recognize your engagement. I recognize your investment into the community. And I would just advise that you do the same thing you did with the U.S. Attorney's Office staff or aide. You all were very active, engaged, and mobile in that regard. And you see what happens when a majority comes together on an issue, even when there are dissenters. But I can tell you historically, and you can check our record, myself, Alderwoman Miller Blakely, and Bryant Lanier, we are always on your side when it comes to an issue that's facing your community. And so if this is something that you are acknowledging to me that's going to take away the quality of life in your neighborhood, we listen to that, and our votes have reflected it. So you have 3 votes in this room tonight. You only need 2 more. So that's how that works.
I
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
take Rebecca and CJ, and then we're going to wrap it up. Rebecca.
Coming up that will allow for independent or private businesses to sue unions for striking, for any lost profits. So in a right to work state, what does that do to further gut union power?
Senator Jackson, you've been a long-time advocate for organized labor in Southeast Georgia. Your thoughts on the question?
It will destroy organized labor. As it will destroy organized labor as we have it. I don't think that measure will pass because remember now, although Georgia's a right to work state, I think it takes so much heat, all right, that we will go into a forcible strike and there will be no work. Delta won't let it happen. Delta won't let it happen because Delta needs. Well,
CEO of Delta.
Right. It's tough. Right now, we're posed to gain 1 more seat in the Senate. On a good year, we may rise to 24, but right now we're going to lock in at 23. That's 1 more seat. And the House should pick up about 3 to 4 seats. It takes 28 seats to have a majority, so we're still 4 seats short. That's why we need a strong governor that's a Democrat elected, so that she can promote and go around the state and flip seats in the next 2 years, so that she can have a majority. So this won't happen.
I would just add it starts with seats like Ben Watson that Jay Jones is running against, one right here in our area. On the House side, they're literally 10 seats away from a majority on the House side, and one of those seats is Representative Ron Stevens in House District 164 here. Both of those West Chatham, so if you're connected out there, push those. Marcus Thompson, yes. CJ.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for your comments about Savannah State. I am a graduate of Savannah State. I also crossed Indiana Road. Savannah State is a heart there. I graduated in 09. The enrollment was 4,900. Now it's down to 3,000.
27, 29.
My question is,
29.
we have 39 homeless camps, and most of those homeless camps have been gutted in downtown Savannah, and they've moved out to other parts as far out as Garden City, Point Wentworth. And we have a fire that just happened underneath. When are we going to sit down with our administrators? Because I talked to my maintenance guy who told me that he had went to his lead, who he's in the parking and services department, and he is asked he did research in Colorado and California where they have an open area, where they have a designated area where homeless live. He went and did research, drew it up, he submitted this information over to his lead, which was never presented to city council. When can we start talking to these administrators and getting answers? What do we do? How do we make that communication happen?
I'll present this to all three of you. You know, the growing homeless problem in our area, the over investing in tourism, all that stuff that led to it. Seems like we've had a task force for every single issue from this city government's majority led by the mayor. But yet the issue still tends to remain. So I'll start with John and go to Kesha and Lester, and I'll close this out. Go ahead, John.
Well, if we could monetize rhetoric from the majority on council, a lot of our problems could be solved, and that's the progress just is not there. The packaging and the Cleveland polish is present everywhere, but getting down to substantive issues that are difficult, like homelessness. We're too focused on Broughton Street. Okay, a needless $17 million. I won't say it's totally needless, but they could have spent about $2 or $3 million on Broughton Street and made the improvements that would have brought it up to snuff. Spending $17 million on it. I spent 2 months in California out west this summer, and I saw in Portland the autonomous zone. I saw it in Santa Cruz. I saw it in San Jose as a stopgap policy. Cities are setting aside designated areas, and I guess the logic is instead of having the sprawl and the lack of ability to manage, if we consolidate, maybe we'll have a better position and be able to do more. And what you're describing, I've seen and is happening in California, and it seems to be successful in Oregon with the city of Portland. So,
Kesha, this was your beat, you know, in the nonprofit leadership world for 10 years, leading the Interfaith Hospitality Network. You know, there's really not many that are a greater authority on this specific subject than yourself. Your thoughts on, you know, how the city's fared during your term on council and what we really need to be doing?
There are several layers and dynamics when we talk about homelessness in Savannah. We look at the many levels of homelessness, whether it's structural, whether it's involving mental health, family homelessness, homelessness among women and children is an area I worked in for over a decade. Organization now, Family Promise. It pains me to know that the same service capacity that is of the many organizations from Family Promise to Union Mission to Safe Shelter, they're bearing capacity despite the fact that we have infused millions of dollars into these nonprofits is essentially still the same, right? No one is increasing their capacity. No one is thinking outside of the box at how to tackle these traditional and historical issues that have plagued the homeless community. Then we would be remiss if we did not look at the fact that Georgia lags far behind when it comes to mental health. That is a major contributing factor to street homelessness. When you see somebody under the bridge, if you see somebody walking the streets with a shopping cart, you have to know that is not their favorite place to be. You have to know that there are other elements that contribute to them not wanting to come on the inside or them being resistant to services that could provide more dignity to them while they go through that homelessness situation. And then the other factor, Chuck, and this is a recent factor for the city of Savannah, we are extending so much liberality to developers and to institutions like the Savannah College of Art and Design. You can parallel the increase or the influx of homelessness in our community when Chatham Apartments went away, when Clearview went away. We're talking over 400 units. All of those people were not housed. These were individuals who were teetering on the edge of holding it together. They just needed one more tragedy to occur in their life to put them on the streets. And so we've reached a tipping point here in Savannah. And unless and until we stop talking about it and seriously do something about it, we have a community on the South Side where individuals who are homeless are now starting to trickle into these pristine neighborhoods. It's becoming quite problematic for residents who are going to become more vocal. And so there quite possibly may be some movement coming down the pike from City Hall, but we've missed opportunities here.
Let me interrupt you, make a point, through point, Carrie. Great topic, great question. The fact of the matter is if Kesha wanted to have that discussed at City Council and thoughtfully considered and hopefully find some solutions, she's unable to do it.
No, Kesha actually did. Kesha actually did have that proposal written where we were going to partner with the inner city night shelter and had identified the Tybee Depot as an ideal location for removing some of the individuals under the bridge and helping the inner city night shelter, who serves the hardest to serve homeless in our community, from those with aggravating criminal background, sexual predators, if you will, as well as mental health. But we have now turned that property over in part to a developer, because surely that could not happen across the street from the Eastern Wharf, right? But what came first, the cart or the chicken or the cart or the chicken or the egg? How does that go? Well, but Inner City Night Shelter came first. Inner City Night Shelter has been there for decades, and they are a staple in our community when it comes to serving that population. But Carrie, I just want to say to you that we don't need to talk about it. We know what the problems are. We even know how to solve the problems. We are professionalizing these nonprofit services to where we are giving money to nonprofit organizations where our friends work in exchange for their support for working on our political campaigns.
Political patriots. Senator, your thoughts to close out, because we gotta clear the theater at 9. I'm sorry, no more questions.
First of all,
no more.
I'd like to thank Chuck and John for doing this. Wonderful. 100 episodes is changing Savannah. And let me tell you, though, I also have to thank Miss Alderman Lanier, Alderman Carter, Alderman Blakely, Alderman Shabazz, because one thing is that we have the money to cure homelessness. It's in hotel motel tax. It's in hotel motel tax. This city generates $60 million a year with this proposed hotel motel tax. And that would clear our homelessness issue. But let me tell you though, but if we tear down, I'm sorry, you didn't want to hear that though, did you?
Okay. Defund Visit Savannah for sure. I'm defunding Visit Savannah.
But there's a proposal to increase the hotel motel tax from 6% to 8%. If you really want to bring, if we really want to charge hotels 2% more to come in for the hospital stay, have that money go to help us.
Agreed.
Huh? Have that money go to help the disenfranchised.
And where's it going? And how's it got to be spent? Doesn't it? Most of it go back to the industry.
Well, tied to town doesn't help Savannah.
That's a luxury.
Right. That's
what's supposed to be paid in addition to T-SPLOS and the regular SPLOS.
Well, anyway.
We could get into that too many
Anyway, but tearing down homeless shelters don't cure homelessness. We have to address mental health. We have to address the drug substance abuse that's rampant. But I'm gonna tell you though, in Savannah, 43% of Savannahans own their own home. that means nearly 60% don't own their own home. The average rental unit costs about $1,200 a month.
Way too many.
Most people are about 90 days from being homeless. Most people in Savannah are about 90 days from being homeless. So it could happen to any of us. And what really bothers me are the number of families that are on the verge of homelessness. A mother loses her job. All right. 3 weeks later, she's out of a home. She's living out of a car. So we need to address homelessness, but what we need to do is put more money back into ourselves and help the least of us. And I think the hotel motel tax is one way to solve that. I think that we can create units that can be held for disenfranchised people up to 60 days. And I'm gonna tell you, we don't even have to go as far as California or Oregon. Let's go to Biloxi, Mississippi. Biloxi, Mississippi don't have a homeless issue because the casinos contribute to helping disenfranchised people who don't have housing. You know why? Because they don't want them downtown. So they would rather pay
They'd rather pay their fair share.
They would rather pay their fair share. But what we don't have in Savannah are people paying their fair share.
That's right. That's a great area. And I want to personally say, obviously, none of this would happen without my partner in crime, Johnny McMaster's. I promise you, we've got a 9 o'clock. I want to say again, thank you all of you for coming out. And hopefully we'll see you for another 100 episodes. We'll be outside. Thank you again.
Don't you think it's time for the city of Savannah to have an honest tourism management plan? Let SCAB start paying its fair share? And the hospitality industry needs to increase its wages? The impacts of new growth should not cost residents. All local elected officials on council and commission should have term limits. We're working hard to accomplish these policies. We need your help. Please contribute whatever you can, $5, $10, or $20, by going to bettersavannah.org. Donate. Thank you.